All hell broke loose last year when we tried to introduce a bill that would have saved babies in the third trimester from being killed. That bill lost by one vote, which was an absolute tragedy, because now we've just found out that another 48 South Australian babies have been killed after 23 weeks and right up until birth. Enough is enough. We cannot allow this to be our normal. And so today we're announcing that we're coming back. A very brave South Australian MP, Sarah Game, is introducing a bill to save these babies, and that's today on The Dr. Jo Show. I'm going to ask you first and foremost to promote and prioritise the rally on the steps of Parliament at 5:30pm to 6:30pm on the 17th of September outside the South Australian Parliament on North Terrace. It's going to be an incredible rally. We're going to have really good speakers and testimonies, music. I'm really asking you to prioritise this, the 17th of September. So today we have a really exciting show planned because we're coming back with a bill. And if you recall last year with the live births bill, this was introduced by Ben Hood, a wonderful Liberal MP who stuck his neck out on the line, and oh my gosh, did they crucify him for it, both within his party and also outside of the party. Ben had to endure a lot. But his bill simply said that at 28 weeks and up until birth, if a mum wanted an abortion, she couldn't kill her baby. She could deliver the baby alive. She has to deliver that baby anyway because of the procedure for a late-term abortion is delivery. But Ben's bill said you just can't kill this baby first, and so the baby will be delivered alive and then they can be placed for adoption. Now, we lost by one vote, which was heartbreaking, and we said at the time that this will result in more babies being killed, and we were right. Look at the data that's just come out about South Australia. So what it shows you is that 34 more babies have been killed after 23 weeks and up until birth that were perfectly healthy. These were babies that had nothing wrong with them at all. And the mum was not in a life-threatening scenario at all. Nothing wrong with her, that was threatening her life. No reason to inject that baby's heart with poison. 34 more babies were killed that way. There were 15 babies who had some kind of fetal anomaly. So they had some kind of disability. It could have been as simple as a club hand or a cleft lip to something more serious like anencephaly, where they don't have bits of their brain. So, we don't know what these babies had. We don't even know if these are confirmed disabilities or just suspected, but there were 15 babies who were brutally killed because of disability. And then it says one baby was killed to save the life of the pregnant person or another fetus. Now, it couldn't have been to save the life of the pregnant person because you don't inject a baby's heart with poison and then deliver that baby dead if you're going to save the mother's life. Like, that process takes between 12 to 72 hours. So it was not to save the life of the mother, but it could have been, the doctors could have said, well, we need to save the life of a twin. But even so, having spoken to OBGYNs, that is not necessarily correct. In fact, they get that wrong. Sometimes they even kill the wrong twin. But that isn't a medically clear diagnosis from what I've heard speaking to doctors about that. So, what's really clear though, summarising all of this, is that we didn't pass that bill. 48 more babies have been killed through a late-term abortion. So it is a really grave situation, but I'm excited to say that Sarah Game is fighting back. She has decided to introduce a bill to protect babies from 23 weeks and up until birth. So it's the Protecting Healthy, Viable Babies Bill. And it is really exciting. We haven't seen a bill like this in Australia, and I'm really excited that Sarah is introducing it. Sarah is a single mum herself. She knows what it's like to be vulnerable. She shared her story in The Advertiser many years ago, just about some of the particular challenges she's faced, like with her own battles with mental health issues, but also being a single mum. So, I think Sarah is perfectly placed to introduce this bill. They really attacked Ben because he was a man. There were all of these, annoying, like frustratingly stupid arguments being made that Ben was a man trying to control women's bodies. They can't say that about Sarah, so that's good. Win there, we at least get that win. But I think what's really exciting is to see that this is now us coming back. I think they thought that if they attacked Ben, if the bill didn't pass, if they banned me from the parliament, that would just be the end of us. But if anything, our following and our movement has tripled since that time. So in just the 6 months since that bill failed by one vote, we've actually just grown so significantly. That makes us even more powerful now. And there's a state election coming up next March, on March 26th, and we're going to make this an issue front and centre. So let's talk briefly about Sarah's bill. Now, she's just announced today that this is something she's going to do, but it's going to be introduced on September the 17th in the South Australian Parliament. So in a week and a half's time, we're going to have a rally on that day. So I'm going to be talking about that at the end. But even just now, I want to say we need thousands of people there. And so if you're watching from interstate, do fly in for this rally. If you've got friends in South Australia, tell them to come to this rally, because there's no excuse for not coming. At the end of the day, this is the human rights issue of our time. These are little babies who are having their hearts injected with poison, causing searing agony. They're in so much pain, and then they're delivered dead. And so we cannot afford to not show up. It doesn't matter what you've got on. Unless you're dead yourself, you should be at the rally. That's as simple as it is, you know. Like, it's hard for me as a mum of 5 to bring all of them there and to be doing this stuff, but we have to do it. We have to sacrifice if we want this ever to change. And so the bill will be introduced on September 17, and it's a bill that essentially amends the current South Australian abortion law. So under Section 6 of the South Australian Termination of Pregnancy Act, it says that you can have an abortion after 22 weeks and 6 days if continuing the pregnancy would result in a significant risk to the mother's physical or mental health. Sarah's bill simply just removes that provision. So it doesn't add any new provisions, but it just removes the provision that allows doctors to kill a baby after 23 weeks who is perfectly healthy and who would have survived. It just removes that opportunity to kill them. So there's still a provision that if the mother's life is at risk, you can save that mother. There's still a provision that says you can have an abortion for fetal anomaly. Now, I want to say right from the outset that I want to save all of these babies. Like, they are all babies. Right from fertilization, these are human beings, right? And we should be protecting them. But Sarah has seen fit to do this bill, and this is a bill that she believes she can pass, and that's, I guess, what we've got to do. That's what we're working with. We're working with current politicians, and we're working with our current political climate and culture, and trying to save the healthy babies who there's no need to kill them because there's no emergency facing the mother. That's probably the lowest hanging fruit, you know. And if you can't vote for that, then you're an absolute monster. I mean, this places Australia up there with China and North Korea as having the most extreme abortion laws in the world, more extreme than most of Europe, more extreme than the UK. There's only 9 American states out of 50 that allow abortion up to birth. You know, this is absolutely crazy that it's allowed after 23 weeks in South Australia and right up until birth. And so Sarah's bill tries to address some of this by saving the healthy babies. And if her bill passed, 79 babies would be alive today, because abortion up to birth was introduced in South Australia and enacted in July 2022. Since then, we had 8 babies killed in the first 6 months. We had another 37 healthy babies killed in the next 12 months. And then we had 34 babies killed in the last year. So cumulatively, there are 79 babies who were perfectly healthy, who were not needed to be killed to save the mother's life. They would be around today. Now, that's 3 reception classrooms. So Sarah's bill gets us a very long way to protecting these babies. Obviously, we want to protect all of them, but this bill is a tremendously good step in the right direction, and we have to do everything we can to pass it. And I'm not going to mention this member of parliament, but one of the members of parliament told me about a situation in their family where a child was born at about 23, 24 weeks, you know, and that changed that person's perspective on abortion, seeing that child being born at 23, 24 weeks and just seeing the humanity of that child and how that child was welcomed and cared for and how that child's alive and kicking today. You know, Tom Koutsantonis, who's also a Labor MP, he shared on his Instagram about his daughter who was born at 28 weeks and who now is like a thriving teenager. Like, everybody knows somebody that was born early, and it doesn't make them any less of a human person because they were born early. And the studies are now showing increasingly good odds for babies that are born prematurely. At 28 weeks, it's a 96% survival chance, you know, which is really good rate. But even earlier, there's this Japanese study which shows odds of above 80% for babies that are born at 22 weeks. Now, Japan has some of the best neonatal wards in the world, but even this new study published in 2025 by the Journal of the American Medical Association has revealed that both active medical treatment and the survival rates of babies born as early as 22 weeks are increasing. So, you know, Sarah's bill really simply says that if you're 23 weeks and older, you are a little baby. If you were born prematurely and wanted, we'd do everything to save your life. Let's save these babies. Let's stop them from being killed. Just a couple of things to say at the outset. So I know what you might be thinking. You might be asking, will this bill pass? Well, last year we lost by one vote. The composition of the South Australian Parliament hasn't changed. The upper house is still what it is. So that means we have a battle in that we've got to get that extra vote. Where could that extra vote come from? Well, there's a number of MPs that we're going to have to start contacting and speaking to. But I think at the end of the day, this is really just a matter of good and evil. Like if you're on the side of injecting babies in the heart with potassium chloride after 23 weeks, healthy babies, you're on the side of evil. And we just really need to flesh that out. And I think the important thing to say is whether it passes or doesn't pass, we always have to try. Like not a year can go by where we don't introduce a bill to save and protect these babies. Like think about William Wilberforce's battle to outlaw slavery in England, you know, and the effects that had around the world. That was a battle that took him years and years, bill after bill after bill, at great personal cost. He was so sick by the end of his life. But I look at William Wilberforce and I just think, you know, you knew the truth and the light and you did it. You worked so hard to do that. That's what we have to do. Like that is actually the commitment that we have to have for these babies. We have to do this. Like whether it passes or not, I don't care. I hate it when like pro-life leaders come and tell me, oh, Joe, no, we shouldn't bring a bill. It's too much heat or it's not going to pass or this is not the right time. When is the right time? Like when is the right time to save these babies? The right time is now. It is always now. If we've got a politician willing to work with us, we've got to introduce these bills. The second thing people might be saying is, well, there's an election coming up. There's only 6 weeks left of Parliament. Well, there's 6 weeks left of Parliament to pass this bill, so let's pass it. People might say, oh, is this a political stunt? Of course it's a bloody political stunt. Of course. Everything is a political stunt. Do you think them walking across the Harbour Bridge wasn't a political stunt? Of course it was, you know. And is it a coincidence that weeks later Albanese says, I'm going to recognise a Palestinian state? I mean, politics is about grabbing attention. It's about stunts. It's about prickling the conscience of people to care about the issue that you care about. We care about these babies. So we have to do whatever it takes to really draw attention to the plight of these babies. And introducing a bill is probably the single best way that we can really mobilise the community to care. And I guess what we're going to see is a vote on this. And hopefully we're going to see an upper house and a lower house vote. And we're going to be able to know who we can vote for at the next state election next March in South Australia. Now, this is something I get all the time from, you know, the pro-life movement, from politicians. Maybe this is something you've heard. People saying to me, Joe, you only get one shot a term. You had your chance last year. You didn't get it. So wait till the next election. Or they say, you know, you got to do it when the time is right and we know we've got the numbers and we know we've got to win. But I just turn around to those people and say, this is actually how you build a movement. Look at what we've been doing. You know, we haven't passed a bill yet. We have heavily amended Amanda Con's Greens bill in New South Wales, which I count as a victory. We've had 2 inquiries that have brought this barbarity to the public light, you know, at a federal level and at the Queensland level. Because of 2 bills, we've been able to get inquiries into the issue of babies born alive. You know, think about the fact that Ben's bill last year, that led to South Australia having the lowest abortion rate in 25 years. That was a 4-month debate in South Australia last year, stigmatising abortion, bringing it out into the light. It led to more babies being saved because we had that debate, because the abortion rate dropped to the lowest rate in 25 years in South Australia. That's incredible. And bringing this bill, Sarah's bill, this will be the way that we build our movement, that we continue to build our movement, you know, because we know the other side's going to do insane stuff. They're not going to be able to cope. Like, they've banned me from the parliament. I don't know what the next thing they're going to do is, guys, but we know they're going to go crazy because they just cannot handle this. And so that will bring us opportunities as well to grow our movement and to expose them for what they really are. And let's think about the counterfactual that all these like naysayers are proposing, which is that, you know, we sit in our hands now and we wait for the next 5 years until we've got the perfect moment and the perfect politician to introduce our bill, you know, and by some miracle it passes because we pass it. I mean, and then what? You know, because I think in that situation where we haven't worked on the culture, where we haven't had this debate, where we haven't built our movement, just because we've somehow managed to get the right concoction of politicians into the parliament to pass our bill and we pass it, it will just get defeated by the next government that gets in. Because the reality is, if we don't change hearts and minds and build a movement and have this debate, as painful and time consuming and as costly as it is, we are never going to make abortion unthinkable. We're never going to end abortion. And, I have people who will say, it'd be better to get someone from a mainstream party to introduce it. Sarah Game, she's X1 Nation, they'll label her as the extreme right. Who cares about whether the media labels Sarah as a far right person, extremist? Who cares what the media thinks? You think they're going to be nice to us because we get someone from the mainstream party to introduce a pro-life bill? I mean, we saw what happened to Ben Hood last year when he was from the Liberal Party and introduced this bill. There was a massive pile-on. And the reality is, like, Vincent Tarzia, the Liberal leader, has totally squashed the opportunity for anyone to introduce a pro-life bill since Ben bravely did it. Tarzia came out and pathetically said, anyone that does something like that again on abortion, they won't be on my front bench. So he's just totally squashed that, shown us his true colours and his gutlessness. I don't think he'll ever be Premier of this state because of that. But then, Peter Malinauskas on the other side, like the Labor Party is just run by this cabal of pro-abortion Emily's List women. These women who are so embedded with abortion that they're actually part of a faction, a lobby group, Emily's List, which is so aggressively pro-abortion that was the reason for it being established in 1996 in the first place. So, our options with the major parties are pretty limited, guys. And so I am very grateful for Sarah to have the courage to do this. And then finally, you're going to get these people saying, well, this bill only saves some babies. We need to introduce a bill that saves all of the babies. Well, I'd say to you, good luck with that. There isn't a politician in the country who's going to introduce a bill like that. And how do I know that? Because nobody has. And because, now when politicians want to introduce pro-life bills, they come to me. But what Sarah's doing is honestly the most courageous pro-life bill we've got to. Like, we've had some bills by Matt Canavan, Alex Annick and Senator Ralph Abetz at the federal level protecting babies who survive their abortion. That's the kind of bill that Robbie Katter's also introduced in Queensland. We know John Ruddock is introducing a bill in New South Wales to protect little baby girls from being killed because they're girls. We know that Ben introduced a bill protecting babies from 28 weeks, but now we have Sarah protecting babies from 23 weeks, healthy babies from 23 weeks. Look, this is where we're at. This is the point in the culture where we currently are. And all of us need to be united behind Sarah Game's bill. And of course, I want to pass a bill protecting babies from conception to birth. That's a bill we all want to see passed. But first and foremost, I feel called to save babies. And this is how we do it. We start by saving these babies and we take the Australian people on a journey so that they actually understand what abortion is, because there is such a low level of awareness around abortion. And in that debate on the live births bill last year with Ben, so many people had their eyes opened. And I know that in Sarah's bill this year, we may pass this bill, in which case we will have saved all future healthy babies in South Australia from 23 weeks, but we will also be saving so many more babies because of the conversations we're having, and it will also provide a template for more bills. And I want to be clear about that. That's our goal. We are a movement that wants to end abortion because it's never in the best interest of women and it always kills a child. So where does this leave us? Well, we've got a lot of work to do. I'm going to ask you first and foremost to promote and prioritise the rally on the steps of Parliament at 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on the 17th of September outside the South Australian Parliament on North Terrace. It's going to be an incredible rally. We're going to have really good speakers and testimonies, music, all of the stuff that we've been bringing to our rallies that have been making them so much fun. There'll be stuff for the kids. We'll have a kids table, face painting, balloons, bubble ones, toys. All of it will be there, and it is just going to be such a historic, exciting moment where we protect these children through our people power, through turning up. It really makes a difference if you come. I'm really asking you to prioritise this. The 17th of September, this is when this bill will be introduced. Secondly, sign the petition down below, the Justice for 79 petition. Anybody in the country can sign it. We want to say these 79 babies, the tragedy that they were killed over the last 2.5 years, that tragedy can never be repeated. They must be the last. This bill must be passed. And then finally, share this video, speak about this to your friends. The great thing about a bill means it'll be in the media. This is the way you can start the conversation with others about abortion up to birth in this country. Thank you for watching. I'm looking forward to doing this with you guys as we get this bill passed. And that's today on The Dr. Jo Show.